What's going on, everybody? The original Mako back with some more Gunfire Reborn content, and today is the day. New weapons were added in the last patch, which means it's Gunfire Reborn tier list time for the weapons. And I'm going to be doing something a little different today that was suggested at the end of during my last tier list video. For the first time since my very first tier list video, I'm going to be essentially starting from scratch. And instead of just moving some weapons around and adding in the new ones, I am literally just going to be reevaluating all of them and giving my explanations again. I'm going to try to keep the explanations relatively short so it's not like a hour-and-a-half long video. But yeah, we're going to be starting with all the weapons, going through all of them again. Some of them might be in different spots. I'm just going to be looking at this, a blank slate, reevaluating every single weapon. So it should be a lot of fun. Obviously, we're going to have the new weapons in there. And yeah, let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you've been enjoying the content, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. We have a real chance to possibly hit my goal of 1,000 subscribers by the end of February or beginning of March, which would be amazing and incredible. So hit that subscribe button. Like 75% of you guys aren't subscribed. Just slap it. It takes 2 seconds. Also, check out my Twitch link in the description, twitch.tv/theoriginalmako. Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, 11 a.m. Eastern, live there. So, that being said, let's go ahead and get into it here. So some of the pictures here, the profile things might be a little hard to see, but I'll be sure to vocalize what every single weapon is before we go through it. So, starting at the top, we're just going to go in order, left to right, boom, bang, bop. We have the Demon Lore. Demon Lore for me is staying in essentially, okay, and we have different categories, I forgot. Essentially broken, really good, average, ew, and make me dead inside. Demon Lore is going in the essentially broken because if you get infinite ammo, or if you get against the flow, or advanced depot, you essentially just win the run. Even with no other help, but even with just a small bit of other help, it makes it infinitely easier. So Demon Lore has to go in essentially broken because it is essentially broken. If you get either of those scrolls, and even without the scrolls, it's still really good. It's not nearly as efficient, but it's still a really good weapon. Next up, the Scalpel. The Scalpel is a really good weapon. Not quite essentially broken, but for how stable it is, how accurate it is, and the fact that it has the highest base crit multiplier of every single SMG, definitely a really good weapon. Always hits like a truck. Hitting, doesn't matter if they have shield, if they have armor. Doesn't make a damn bit of difference to the Scalpel. Scalpel's going to hit them for a truckload of damage. Concealed ammo. This one's tough for me. Okay, I'm going to go average, but it's got to be the upper echelon of average. Now, with the concealed ammo, you can do so much damage if you have the right build, like on the dog, or you just get really lucky on your roll with the concealed ammo. But the problem I have with it is the fact that it just chews through ammo most of the time. So unless you have a good scroll to counteract that, then you are going to be just gunning through ammo, which might not matter if you're killing things super fast, but it also might mean you only get to use the weapon about half the time, not as often as you'd like to. It's a very good weapon, a very viable weapon, and can potentially cause the most damage in a single throw in the game, in a single bullet per se. So it definitely has that extreme potential, but I feel like it's a lot harder to get going and to get it to the point where it's in that really good or essentially broken category, unless you're specifically trying to do it. Like if you just run into a concealed ammo on any normal given run, it's going to be average. So that's why I'm putting it there. You don't have to be trying to go for anything. Like on the Demon Lore, for example, yes, you do have to have certain scrolls, but it's not like if you find it in the desert on stage 2, you're like, oh, I haven't been building explosion on the dog. I'm kind of screwed if you find the concealed ammo. If you find the Demon Lore, you're like, oh, okay, I still have a chance to make this broken. Next up is the Sunder. The Sunder for me is going to go average. Really good weapon. Does a lot of damage up close. If it rolls with any of the ball inscriptions, lightning, corrosion, or fire, it makes it infinitely better, but that's a big if. But it is a good thing that it can roll with those inscriptions. So it's an average weapon. It's decent. It's nothing too crazy, but it'll get the job done most of the time. The Foundry, since we don't have a must-have category anymore, it's just going to go smack in the average. And yes, I do think it is average, not ew, because it does scale with your highest weapon level. It does not great or not terrible damage and has built-in infinite ammo, which obviously gives it a boost over some other weapons. So it's just going to go right smack in the middle. Scorching Rounds next. This is tough for me. So I think when I do these, I'm going to start ranking them like within the category themselves. So like I'm going to put Scorching Rounds in average, and I'll put it behind the Concealed Ammo and the Sunder and in front of the Foundry, you know. So I'm going to rank them within the category as well as categorically, if that makes sense. Scorching Rounds just had a little bit of a buff, reload speed, base reload speed increase, and that makes it really nice. The weapon already reloaded fast, but the faster it reloads, the more DPS you do. Stay hydrated. So it's a really good weapon. The magazine size is a wee bit small for me, but that's why they increased the reload speed, obviously. Try to balance that out a little bit. It does a lot of damage, comes with some fire by default. Pretty good weapon overall. Nothing too crazy, nothing too terrible either. Next up, the Aura of Venom is going smack into the average category, right about here. I don't like it. Actually, okay, sorry. I'm going to put it in EU, actually, because if you get Advanced Depot or Deft Hands or something, it's like, haha, funny. Yeah, we saw that in my all-weapon challenge run the other day. We got Deft Hands, and you just right-click, and things will just die. But if you don't have that, the 6 bullets in the mag seem way too short or way too few for the damage it does. And it just, something about it just doesn't quite sit right with me. It doesn't hit like it should, in my opinion. So that's why I'm going to put it in the EU category. It's just not something I can really get my head wrapped around. I was going to put it average because of the Advanced Depot / Concealed Ammo or / Deft Hands thing, but I don't think I can do it. Overall, I think it's EU. The Thunderstorm, one of the newer weapons. I'm going to put it right there in average. I think a lot of these weapons are going to be average, by the way, but yep. Thunderstorm in average. It hits pretty hard. The right click can occasionally be useful. I very rarely use it, but it comes with built-in lightning damage. It hits kind of hard. Obviously, kind of got a little bit of a buff-ish with the new hero, since you want to be doing a lot of lightning damage. Not really, though. But anyways, Lightning Storm hits hard. I like it. It's not, it doesn't really wow me, but it's not like I don't want to pick this up. I'll pick it up and enjoy my time with it. Talisman is going to go right there. Bottom of the barrel average right here. I like, you know, obviously the auto critting is nice. Whatever. It just tickles things for me, and you can obviously switch your elemental ability to be whatever you want, so it can help you in pretty much any scenario, but I just don't think it does enough damage, honestly, and it has some fun synergies if you get like lightning ball, fireball, whatever. But outside of those very specific things, I just don't enjoy the Talisman because it just doesn't do enough damage for me, and you know, that just is what it is. Next up, we have the Hell. The Hell I am going to put right in front of the Sunder. Because of the sheer fact, honestly, the sheer fact that it has piercing puts it there. The piercing bullets on this make it really nice to get through shields. It can obviously do a ton of damage up close. Has some good inscriptions you can get with it. Doesn't need anything special to be really good. If you pick up a normal one, chances are it's going to be good, unless you got really unlucky with inscriptions. So it's towards the upper end of average. Next up, the cavalry. Cavalry is going to go right in front of the hell. Another very good weapon that once it would be very hard to not have one that you're like, ew, this is a terrible weapon. The fact that the third shot always crits is extremely nice. Can help you with some synergies, some crit synergies like lightning from the void on the new hero. But overall, just a good weapon. It's pretty accurate, pretty stable. You can get a lot of really good inscriptions on it. So that's why I'm going to put it at the upper end of the average category. Next up, the Illusion. Illusion is going in the essentially broken category. I made this move in the last tier list video. I made the move up to the top. This thing just shreds. It's kind of like the Scalpel, where it doesn't matter if you have shields, armor, normal health. It will demolish you internally, physically, over and over, and it won't stop until you, your family, your brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins, all of them are just gone. It hits hard, it shoots fast, has a lot of really good inscriptions, very few bad inscriptions, and just don't need anything special to make it an absolute tank of a weapon. Next up, the Argus. Argus, I'm going in really good. After I also made this move in the last update video, because after the patch where the long range, all the bullets stay in a line, they don't just keep spreading as they go farther. That was a huge buff for this weapon, in my opinion. Makes it way more controllable at long range, as well as being very good at short range, and it has that knockback. Really good in the desert for rogue arsonists when they're coming at you, being able to knock them back, and then still being able to control the damage you do to them after you knock them back, because it's better at long range and more controllable. So Argus, really good weapon. It's definitely not essentially broken, but it's definitely not average, and it's not quite Scalpel levels. I'm actually going to flop those two. The Pupil Shotgun. Oh, I might get flack for this, but I'm going to put it in the U category. It's not bad. It's not bad, but it's just not good enough for me. The lightning damage is nice. It can do a lot of damage. And honestly, I kind of want to try. I haven't had a chance to try the Pupil with the new hero yet, so that could change my mind. Getting the really high damage for one shot on the Pupil could definitely be a good synergy to have, but it's something I haven't had a chance to try yet, and since I haven't, I'm keeping it in the U category. I just don't think it does enough for me, so not a super humongous fan of the Pupil, but it could sneak in average. It could. The Wild Hunt up next, and the Wild Hunt is going to go right behind the Hell. It's a decent weapon if you don't get anything else to go with it, but if you get something like Advanced Depot, Deft Hands, if you're on the bird and you get Hail of Bullets, Wild Hunt becomes infinitely better. And if you have the every second shot deals plus 200% lucky shot chance, then it becomes essentially broken. So it's very easy to break it, but it's too broken, like the Demon Lore isn't broken specific. Like, it's up there because of how broken the weapon is when you do get those right scrolls, but even without them, it's still very good. The Wild Hunt without the broken stuff is good, but not it's okay. It'll do a lot of damage, but that's about it for you. So that's why I'm going to put it in average. It has potential to be up here, but most of the time it's going to be average to really good. Next up, the Porcupine. Porcupine is going to go in the really good category near the bottom. Could slip back down into average at any point, but it hits hard. You can obviously left click and right click at the same time, so you can max out DPS a little bit that way. Does corrosion damage, always slows enemies down. Corrosion's never a bad thing to have with you. And like I said, it just hits pretty hard, has really nice range for what it is, and has a lot of potential in pretty much any run you pick it up in. So that's why the Porcupine is going in the really good category. Next up, the Tiger Cannon. Now, this is going to be a biased opinion. I understand. So don't come at my ankles or anything. But I'm going to put it at the very top of the average category because I said it on stream a few times. The most fun runs I'd been having for a while until the new hero came out was doing the dog dual-wielding tiger cannons. You might have seen a couple of those videos on this channel. But the dog dual-wielding tiger cannons and doing just massive explosive builds was so much fun. I loved every second of it. They weren't always the best runs, but they were just so fun. And because of how much fun I have with this weapon, that's why it's going here. If I was judging it purely based off of its ability as a weapon, I'd probably put it more at the lower end of average, but I'm keeping it at the upper echelon. Next up, the laser gloves. These are going to go in my EU category. I'm not a huge fan of the laser gloves. They can roll with some really good inscriptions that definitely make them at least average. But most of the time when I pick them up, I'm not very excited about it. Doesn't do enough damage for me. It takes too long to scale on individual targets. So like it's basically non-existent to use unless you're using it on an elite or a boss. So personally, I just don't think it deserves a whole lot of credit. But you can get some exceptions, as you can for pretty much any weapon on this list. But for the most part, when they average out, I think it goes right here in the U category. Next up, the Frenzied Shark. And we have our first contestant on the Makes Me Dead Inside category, because it really does make me dead inside. I don't know why this exists. I don't know what you would ever use it for. I don't know who thought it was a good idea, but it's a worse Justice with way less control, way less damage, less AoE, slower reload, I'm pretty sure. It's just a worse version of something else in the game, so it's like, why would I ever want there's no scenario where this is ever a good thing to have. At least all the weapons in EU right now, there are some scenarios like Advanced Depot with the Aura Venom, a whole lot of fun. Laser Glove, if you get a couple of good inscriptions on it, a whole lot of fun. The Pupil definitely has a lot of potential with the new hero. This has the potential to do nothing in its life, and it never will. And frankly, I think it probably should have never even been conceived as an idea. So the Frenzied Shark can just fuck off for all I care. Shrieker up next. Shrieker is going to go at the very bottom of the average category. Could very easily be an EU material. Its most recent change was a little bit ago, but they upped the projectile speed, which made it better than it was. But I still don't think it's got quite enough gusto to move it up the average tier, but it definitely, I don't think it's quite you. It can be decent. You get a little bit of explosion AoE, a little bit of extra damage that way. And yeah, I just don't, definitely doesn't wow me, but it definitely doesn't make me want to actually cut my head off like the Frenzied Shark does. The Bone Dragon, that is going to go in the U. Now this is going to go at the bottom so far. This could be probably hotly contested. I just don't use it very often, if I'm being honest with you. And the times I do use it, I'm not usually impressed by it. Maybe I just haven't had a good one. Maybe I haven't given it enough chances. But from what I've played, I'm not a big fan of the Bone Dragon, and that's why I almost never pick it up. It just never really does the job for me. When you're dual wielding, not bad. You know, if you're doing a very specific explosive build, you know, pulling things in and then throwing Justice grenades at the pulled in enemies is not a bad combination to have. But overall, on just any given run, if you're to stumble upon the Bone Dragon, I just don't think it's worth your time of even looking at it. The Rainbow Arch up next is going to go very high tier in the average. It's a very good weapon. I don't think any given Rainbow Arc just can go in the really good category. If you're using it with the Bird and Energy Blade specifically, The right click can skyrocket this thing. I think I've done almost 300,000 damage in a shot with the Rainbow Arc from using the cat, not the bird, the cat's Ascension's energy blade. So has a lot of potential, and its left click is really accurate and does a decent amount of damage in its own right. So the right click and left click, it's a versatile weapon. It does a good job of doing what it does, but it doesn't wow me enough to go in either of the top two categories. Next up, the Justice Grenade Launcher. I'm going to put it behind the Scalpel. After it used to be essentially broken, they nerfed it. A pretty hefty nerf. The range nerf is real big, but I still think it's a really good weapon to pick up at almost any stage of the game. Specifically, stage 1 is where it shines, but even in stage 2, it still does work. It's just a little, definitely worse, especially with that range drop off now, but it's still a very good, very viable weapon to use. Next up, the Thunderclap gloves. I'm going to put these in the EU category as well, right next to their buddies, but I think I'm going to put them a little bit higher because of the AoE of that chain lightning that it kind of does. Kind of has the built-in chain lightning. Makes it nice for doing damage to more enemies. It just does so little damage that you feel like you're almost tickling them, but at least, you know, for lantern, like a big group of lanterns or crabs or a big group of small enemies, it can take them out really quick. So I don't like it. Wouldn't use it very often. I'm just not a huge fan of it. Don't think it deserves to be average, but I think it's towards the upper end of EU, at least so far. Next up, we have the Rainbow, which I'm going to put in the EU category, right in front of the Bone Dragon. I feel like the damage falls off way too fast. Early game, if you get it very early game, like first chest, not bad. You're probably going to be melting some things. But then after that, you have to start focusing on right-clicking to make sure you're on their head. And if you're not, it just does very average damage. Oh, excuse me. I went to bed late last night. Anyway, very average damage, and it falls off so quickly. So unless you're like right-clicking their head, and even then, it's still just kind of meh. So I think it's definitely not a stunner in any way, but it doesn't quite make me dead inside either. So it's just going to go right in the U category. Fire Dragon is going to take me to right in front of the Foundry in the average. It's good. It does a lot of damage. You have to be really close, which is a downside, but they did up the range somewhat recently. Fire comes with it inherently, a decent amount of ammo in the mag. So a lot of good things that this weapon does, but it doesn't do anything, doesn't do any amazing things or anything super cool for the most part. Obviously, like I said, every weapon has their exceptions, but in a general sense, if you're just picking one up off the ground, 95% of the time, it's just going to be kind of a, okay, type of moment. So next up, the Piercing Flame, and now things are going to get a little bit interesting. And this is why I'm kind of like why I'm rating things in the category for more interesting discussions, such as the Piercing Flame coming up next. I'm going to put it right behind the Rainbow Arc. So snipers did get a buff in the last patch. If you don't know what that buff is, it's the new hero is the buff to all snipers, because the new hero wants you to play with snipers. So there's a lot of good synergies the new hero has, and it makes the snipers grow up, or not grow up, but go up on the tier list a bit. But I don't think it pushes, at least not the Piercing Flame, into the edge of really good. It's definitely good. It's definitely a good option if you're on that character. If you're on other characters, it's still not a bad option, but not your best go-to option, which is one of the main reasons I'm keeping it in average. But yeah, I think it goes right there. The Rainbow Arc's right click. Excuse me, guys. The Rainbow Arc's right click, I think, is just inherently better than the Piercing Flame. Now, the piercing is nice, but yeah, Rainbow Arc Rainbow Arc, I think, is a little bit better, but it did go up a bit because of the new hero. Double Cal. I'm going to put it right behind the Piercing Flame for pretty much all the same reasons, except this doesn't have piercing on it, and it doesn't have any sort of elemental damage by default. So I think the Piercing Flame is just a smidge better, but yeah, still going there for that same reason. The Go Shock. There we go. So the Go Shock I'm putting in the makes me dead inside category because it does make me dead inside. I hate everything about it. The rate of fire is way too goddamn slow for my liking. I don't think the weapon design is very cool. It is better than the Frenzied Shark, I'll give it that. It does have some potential with the new hero. I haven't tried it with the new hero because every time I see a Go Shock, I feel like a puppy dies if I pick it up. So I just can't stand most things about this weapon. The scope feels weird. I just don't like it. Next up, we have the Woodpecker, and this is going to go at the very bottom of the really good tier. Could slip into average easily, but the main reason this goes here is because it can get all the crazy ascensions like Lightning Ball, Corrosive Ball, Fireball. It can get the 25% chance to kill instantly on a crit, and it's a very high rate of fire weapon. So all of these ascensions just get magnified by the rate of fire, and it makes it overall just super good, super useful. Never really run out of ammo with it since it uses large ammo, and I think it's just a really good weapon overall. So Woodpecker gets a nudge at really good, but could definitely be like upper echelon average. Next up, we have the Golden Bow, which I'm going to put in front of the Rainbow Arc because this can roll with like 25% chance to kill on crit. I think the damage is nice. It feels a little bit better than the other snipers. I like aiming with it. I just think it works a little bit better than other snipers do, but still don't think there's anything to really push it into that really good category. But it does a lot of damage, does what it's supposed to do, and frankly, it's just a good weapon to have. Bloody Drill is next up, and boy howdy, here we are. Yeah, we'll do that. Bloody Drill still is in the makes me dead inside, even after the sniper update. I know. It's way better, and honestly could probably slip into the bottom of average, but I still cannot stand the rate of fire on this weapon. For me, it's way too slow. I don't like playing that slow. Even just normal sniper runs sometimes feel a little bit slow to me, but when I'm using the Bloody Drill, I feel like I have to play at snail's pace, and that's not for me. I think they should up the rate of fire. I do like the bleed mechanic. Hopefully that comes back in some way, shape, or form soon. But yeah, it's going right in the makes me dead inside. Now, the upper part of it for sure, but I can't stand it. Crimson Fire Scale is going up in the essentially broken. I don't know if there's any shocks here. Most DPS you can get out of a weapon if you're just constantly hitting crits and then right-clicking. Very, very good. Almost never turn one down if I'm just very specifically trying to win a run. So easily goes into the essentially broken category, and I don't think they have plans on nerfing it anytime soon. I mean, they nerfed it a little bit by lowering fire scale bomb damage in not the most recent update, but the big one before that, and it didn't really change a damn thing. This thing still shreds enemies. Next up, the Sting. The Sting is going to go in the bottom-ish of average. It's okay. This is one of those that I think could have potential to be higher if I play with it more, but for some reason, I just really don't like taking the Sting. So I don't get to use it that often, and I think it just performs very averagely in the times that I have used it. So honestly, I think it just goes right there, and that's where it's going to stay for a while. Next up, we have the Prism, very small Prism. This is going to go upper end of average. It doesn't have enough in it to go to the really good category for sure, but it is definitely an upper tier. Upper tier of the average category. It does a lot of damage, has corrosion built in, pierces through enemies, which is really nice. You can get that bounce inscription, which is super good. Obviously, anything that comes by default with piercing is just good to have. And the prism shows out in the first stage and in the second stage pretty well. So that's why it's going to go there. Next up, we're going to go the piercing flame, or not the piercing flame, the glimmering. We're going to do the new weapons last. So we have glimmering. And I'm going to put this more towards the bottom of average. It's nice. You get that AoE explosive stuff with AoE explosive build with the glimmering, which is good, but it just doesn't, after they nerfed it when it was really good, it does not perform very well. The AoE barely can hit 2 enemies if they're like packed close together, unless you have super high AoE up. But outside of that, it just doesn't impress me with pretty much anything. A little bit of explosions is nice, but it's not, I don't think it's it's still good and has potential, but it's definitely not like upper average or really good for sure. Dragon Chaser, yippee ki-yay, everybody. That's going right in the makes me dead inside near the bottom. Can't stand it, don't like it, don't want to talk about it. People will try to convince me that this weapon's good, and I say, no, sir. Excuse me. For the same reason, the rainbow, I don't like playing with. I don't want to be going around having to right-click on an enemy and then start shooting them, because if my right-click misses their head, I have to right-click again until I get to their head, or at least body. But, like, if I right-click and miss their head a couple times, that's all time I could have been spent shooting an enemy to do damage to it, right? So, other than on bosses, it's just makes me want to just take it and just rip it in half, dismantle every single individual piece of the weapon, and just bash it with a hammer until it literally disintegrates into the air, until it's so finely ground that it just disintegrates into the air, because I hate everything about what it chooses to be. That being said, let's move on to the Lightning Blast. This is going pretty low on the U tab. Once again, another one that I just don't pick up anymore. Its right-click ability to me is essentially pointless. I play solo. It's probably better in co-op. The left-click damage is just whatever. It's not a big deal. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't do a lot of damage, frankly. And because the right-click doesn't really add much to me, I mean, yeah, I could right-click and then shoot through the orb myself with a different weapon or something, but that's just a lot of work. And anything that makes it harder for me is doing harder things to make the game easier is not really my style, which is why the Dragon Chaser and Lightning Blast are just kind of not my style of weapons. Big Hippopotamus up next. And we're going to sauce this bad boy right there in the average category. Right in the middle-ish of average. It's good. Don't like how it makes you slower. I'm not a big fan of playing slow. We just discussed this. So it makes you slower, but a lot of ammo in the mag. Deft Hands makes it really good. A lot of good inscriptions you can get. Dual wielding them's kind of fun. You can get a lot of damage output. So definitely not bad, but definitely not something that wows me or makes me go, you know. So it's going to go right there. Next up, Star Devourer. It's going to go to the top of EU. I think it's a little bit above the... Oh, boy, that's actually a tough call. These two, the Pupil and Star Devourer, are like interchangeable. We'll make these like interchangeable. It's not bad. It's good. And actually, if you're doing a fresh file speedrun, it's actually the optimal choice for you. But I don't like... I mean, using him on the dog is like mental suicide, because you have to be paying attention when you dual wield. Like, normally with an automatic weapon, you just hold down the trigger. But with that one, if you just hold down the trigger, once you go through the first mag, you're just going to be shooting one bullet every time it reloads, which is not optimal. So you have to like wait until it reloads and then start right clicking again, and while you're trying to focus on the other weapon. So that makes that just the whole reloading mechanism of it I don't like. Having to wait for it to recharge, which is weird because like every other weapon you have to wait for it to reload. So it's essentially the same thing. I just don't feel it. I don't know. And it seems to not do enough damage to help me get over that fear of its reload, which is an irrational fear. I know, trust me. You can blame me in the comments for this, but I am genuinely afraid of this thing's reload, and I don't think it does enough damage to change my mind. That being said, 2 more weapons before we get to the new ones. The Angelic Aura is going to go top tier of average, does a lot of damage, can hit pretty hard on its crits, shoots in a burst, a lot of ammo in the mag, light ammo, so you're not going to run out very often. Just overall, a lot of good inscriptions you can get. Overall, a very good weapon, but not quite enough to put it into the really good category. Dual Fang. This one's actually a toughie. Dual Fang, I am going to put the very upper tier of average. Could definitely be a really good weapon, easily, not without a lot of difficulty. But if you just pick it up on any normal run, it's going to be pretty good, most likely. Has a lot of chances to roll with good inscriptions for what it does. But if you're doing like an elemental run, it just becomes essentially broken. So it's very easy to do essentially broken. You just have to be trying to do an elemental run. There's a lot of elemental scrolls out there that just help this weapon make it even better. So it's a very, very good weapon and is borderline really good. And I'm almost tempted to just move it up, but it is literally teetering on the line of really good and average. So just so you guys know. All right. Which means we're down to the final 2 weapons, which are the 2 new weapons. And we'll start with the new type of weapon, the melee weapon, the Sword of Justice. So I do like melee weapon as an idea. I didn't even know this was happening. But execution, I'm going to give it not great thus far. I'm going to put it at the very top of U. Maybe the very bottom of average, but I don't think it's quite earned that. I've first unlocked it on the new character, played it on the new character, didn't go well, obviously, so I played it on the bird, which made a lot more sense, and it went better, but there's still nothing about it that would make me want to use it in a run, and especially if I'm not on the bird, I feel like picking this up on any normal run, any given run, where you have a chance to be any of the heroes, just on your normal average run, it's like, Like, it's okay. It's cool. It looks cool. I like it. The reload animation is super clean, but it does not perform as well as I think it should. So it just doesn't do enough damage for me. Maybe it doesn't swing fast enough. I still really wish the right click, instead of being like just a 5 jab of swords, it would have been like a lightning blade that just slashes through the air, make it like a ranged projectile, give it a little more variability, a little more flexibility as a weapon. But I just don't, it's just not, I hope they add more melee weapons, and I hope they do a better job, honestly. And then the last one, the Strike Wing Sniper Bow Rifle. That bad slamma-jamma is going in the upper echelon. It's going right in the really good, right below the Scalpel, above the Justice, because I like the golden bow and how it works, but this is just a better version of it, because it hits an enemy and then splits into more arrows behind them. Obviously works really, really well on the new hero. But even if you're just picking this up on a normal cat run, dog run, well, maybe not dog because dual wielding is not possible, but cat run or bird run, it just hits hard. So, and I just really like, once again, the feel of bows, the aiming, the accuracy, the bullet travel, all that type of stuff just feels really good with bows. And this is just a better version of the golden bow in every way possible because of the basically built-in splits that it does. So, that being said, that is it for the new tier list. Let me know how many wrong decisions I made in the comments below, because I'm sure you guys have plenty. I see a few on this list that I can see people getting upset about, but that's what it's all about, right? Everybody has their own opinions. That's what makes a game like this good, is that other people will think the Dragon Chaser is really good or the Ghost Shock's really good. If anybody thinks the Frenzied Shark's really good, please send me your address. I want to meet you in person and see if you're real, first of all, and if you are, probably hit you. So be sure to do that as well. But thank you guys for the support recently. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I always love making the tier list videos, and you guys seem to like them too. So you can expect to keep up with it every single time there's new weapons or new balance patches, all that type of stuff. So you're going to want to be subbed to the channel for all of that. There's going to be plenty more Gunfire Reborn content coming at you guys soon. So make sure you're subbed to the channel. Make sure you're following the Twitch. Make sure you're staying hydrated and keeping up on your food count. So that being said, I appreciate it. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I love each and every one of your faces, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.